and we are glad to be with you because we are coming at you loud and clear from 530 Frederica Street at the Rise Y High Missouri.
This case should never have come to trial.
I don't think it's fair to call my clients frauds. Because one time I turned into a dog and they helped me. Thank you.
Your Honor, we would like to withdraw our plea of not guilty and enter a plea of guilty.
This trial is a travesty. It's a travesty of a mockery, of a sham, of a mockery, of a travesty, of two mockeries, of a sham.
If we are to have faith in justice, we need only to believe in ourselves.
And the truth shall set you free!
How do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Oh, guilty, but with a real good excuse.
I think the truth will come forth.
You can't handle the truth!
High-rise white brick edifice.
Yes.
And PJ, I am back and barely here.
Yeah. Did you break into that bottle of bourbon early before
no.
the team won?
No, I did not. I am just tired. I'm operating on very little sleep. Got in from vacation late last night in Nashville. Our plane landed like at 11:50 and then drove home. And it was real foggy last night.
Yeah.
And so it took us like 2.5 hours to get home from Nashville. But so I was up and, at them early today, and here we are recording on this beautiful Thursday afternoon.
That's right. We almost weren't.
Yeah, and
why is that?
Let's just move right on to the next topic because we're not going to discuss the fact that I, kind of forgot about podcast recording today.
That's okay.
Good thing you came in because I had, just so everybody knows, truth. Man, I had my, whatever you call it, my to-go home bag where I keep, my computer and stuff. And I had it over my shoulder and was about to turn the lights off in my office.
Yeah.
And you caught me.
You had that raring to go look.
So that was a great podcast. I'm ready to go.
Yeah, I think that's it. From 530 Frederica Street.
So anyway, good to be back. Got a lot of things caught up today. Had a short marketing/media arts meeting.
We did.
Where we mapped out a few things. And so you guys have plenty on your palette.
Oh, absolutely.
To be working on. And I think that we have a few minor things to talk about. And you said you had something planned for today's podcast.
I do.
And so, but
a rare moment.
Yeah, and I don't know what it is. So I'm going to follow your lead, so to speak, and we'll just kind of see how that works out. Okay.
Sounds good.
But before we do, a couple of just minor announcements. Since our last podcast, you've done a little research about our podcast.
Yeah.
You're going to have to correct me. I remember looking at the list, and was it like 30 different countries now?
Or somewhere between 21 and 23 different countries around the globe.
Because we only thought it was a handful.
When I found out that information initially, it was actually for a very specific date range.
Mm-hmm.
So when I went into the analytics and I was looking into that information more because I was trying to figure some things out as to maybe why we weren't getting our full numbers or were we getting our full numbers, I was able to change the date range and I went all the way back to where we started until now.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a world map in the analytics, and it shows you everywhere that the podcast has been listened to. So it's actually so specific, you can actually click on the countries, and it will tell you what
region,
what region, what's and in some countries what city, places like that.
It's crazy though. I mean, it was a lot. You think about that.
Yeah, and the other cool thing is that when you click on the United States, it'll tell you specifically what states the podcast has been listened to in, and then when you click on that state, it'll tell you what part of that state, like what city or town. Yeah.
Now, I think I noticed, and correct me if I'm wrong, that we have not had a download of the podcast yet from Alaska, and we've not had a download of the podcast from Hawaii.
No.
Okay.
I don't believe so.
But most of the other states, I mean, there was a handful of other states, but I noticed Alaska and Hawaii.
Yeah.
Okay, because I immediately looked, was like, that'd be cool, right? So here is the goal, all right? The goal is to do something, either encouraging our listeners, if you have a friend or family member or contact in Alaska or Hawaii,
to
get this link to them so that they'll listen, so that we can knock off Alaska and Hawaii from the map.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll take it a step further. I want all 50 states.
Yeah, we need to get all 50 states, and that's what we'll do. We'll start honing in on which states it is. But we know for sure Alaska and Hawaii, right? And we need to get those two. We need to get any of our listeners. So when we post this on social media, let's put that in the tag that if you know someone in Alaska or Hawaii, please share this with them.
Or if you're a part of a group or a room that deals with Alaska or Hawaii.
That's right. Somehow,
respectively,
we need to get Law Light to the people of Alaska and the people of Hawaii.
Are you running for office?
We do. It is a very important. Yes,
you got the Bob Dole.
I've got it.
Hand going.
I've got it. But it's serious. Now, what we haven't said, we've talked to people about how our number of listeners is going up, but it is far more up than I realized and appreciated, because when you look at it as unique downloads, and then that person, it is interesting to see that just between January and May of this year, we have almost tripled what we got in our whole first year.
Yeah,
that is a testament to good podcasting, and you are the reason why, PJ. You've never almost walked out of the building without recording. I have, and so the people that love Law Light need to thank you for making it such a good podcast.
Well, I first of all, I appreciate those kind words, but in your defense, you have 1,001 things going on, so it happens.
Okay,
you're human, so you
I appreciate,
and your name is on the side of the building, so you can get away with it.
Yeah, right. Well, it's kind of funny that it would be me that would forget about it, and I'd almost walk out, because I was the one that was harder on No Show. When she didn't show up for our podcast, Katie Tursick, when she didn't show up, I was the one that kind of gave her the old 1-2 about it, right? And you kind of were like,
that's true.
I know, we should give her a second chance.
And now she's moving back to Cleveland.
Yeah, I heard that maybe a statement you made got her in a little trouble over there, and she's now having to relocate and get a whole new job in Cleveland.
I think it's that her family listened to the podcast and were just, so sad that she
homesick.
wasn't. Yeah, so she just had to get back there to her family.
Well, whatever it is, I'm glad we got her on the show before she left.
I know, her last hurrah.
But now we're going to see who's going to cover for WFIE here in Owensboro.
Yeah, that will
now
be
that Katie
interesting.
Tursick's gone, and maybe it's a future guest on the old podcast.
Yeah, I would say it's definitely a future
And if that
guest.
person shows up on their first invite, they got my vote as reporter of the year for Owensboro.
Yeah,
there's all two of them.
I mean, they have to at least show up for the podcast.
That's right.
That's the most important thing.
Okay, all right. Enough about the podcast and tooting our own whistle here.
Enough about the podcast during the podcast.
When it's pretty bad, when all you have to talk about in the podcast is the podcast. But I wanted to get that out and also do the little challenge about Alaska and Hawaii.
Right.
We've
got this.
We're getting this to the fine people of Alaska and the fine people of Hawaii. They need more Law Light, or some Law Light, or just any Law Light.
Yes, Law Light. Period. So those two states specifically, because they're kind of, while they're still part of the United States, they're also outside the United States.
Right. When you think of the extremes,
right? Because they're both one end of the spectrum.
They
to the
are
other.
over there. They're way out, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's
one
like,
snow, one tropical.
If we say we've gone, from one end of the continental U.S. to the other end, and Hawaii and Alaska, it's got that ring-a-ling, and so it's just we need to knock those, because if we can get to Hawaii and Alaska, my man, there is no state that we can't reach.
That's true.
And once we have reached all the states, we are on a roll. The podcast.
I think we're already on a roll.
Yes, we are.
But we can be rolling even more.
Okay. Now, let's get to a little bit of substance to this here podcast. All right. And you have something planned today. You said, hey, I've got, since you've been gone, Travis, I've got the substance for the podcast. and you said, I've got it right here. You showed me a little sheet of paper, and I said, look, don't tell me what it is. Don't read any of it to me. Catch me off guard. So I don't know where we're about to head, and I'll apologize in advance, for what's about to happen. But PJ, what do you got?
Well, funny enough, there was a couple more risque things on this list that I put together, which I ended up taking a couple of them off because I thought it was pushing. Even I have limitations sometimes.
Oh my gosh! Yeah.
So before I say anything about this though, so when this podcast drops, Connor will be turning 10.
Oh,
so
well,
happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Connor.
Yeah, happy birthday.
And my daughter, as soon as we get off here, I'm going home, showering, and preparing for my last daughter is graduating high school tonight.
Oh.
Yes.
See, there you go. That's why your
on
mind was there.
Yeah,
your mind was on family.
It was.
So
I'm
there
a
you go.
Family man.
Yeah, so you're good.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Don't worry
Makes
about
me feel
it.
better. What you got?
Okay, so even before I worked here, I've had conversations before where, you hear people say, have you ever heard about this law? And it'll be some weird, obscure law that you would assume would be out of date. It's not something that would even, it's obviously not something recognized, but surely not something that is still a functioning law today. And
okay, I see where you're going with this, maybe.
Right. So that's what I did. I thought it would be interesting to talk about weird or obscure laws in Kentucky.
Okay, so we're specific to Kentucky.
Yeah, it's specifically Kentucky.
You've done all your research on this?
Ish.
Okay.
And so most of them are just the law.
Uh-huh.
And then I have a few where there's a little bit of back story to it, but I thought it would be interesting to say these and then see if you have ever heard of them or had an experience. Right.
Okay.
Right.
But now, before we jump onto your list, we have had, I'm going way back, we have had one discussion early in our podcast, and when you go to drop this podcast, you'll have to look back and see. I'm going to guess it was within, from number 5 to number 15, somewhere in that range.
I want to say I remember us talking about
what
something.
we talked about was the obscure law about the oath that lawyers take not to duel.
Yes.
Remember?
That's right, because then I talked about no ice cream cones.
Yes. So
because that horse thieves.
We did. Yes, exactly. We did not jump on this topic, but we did brush up against it.
Yeah.
Okay, so today
this is an expanded version of that moment.
And you have a long list over there, and I don't know how much we're going to get through. But what we may do here, PJ, is if we get into these, we may go over to part 2 next week, and like a continuation of obscure Kentucky laws.
Sounds good.
And see what we got. So, what do we have first? What's
the first one is
go ahead, shoot. Yeah,
a woman.
Go ahead.
Now these are all active laws.
Yeah, go ahead.
Too, because I made sure.
Okay, yeah. All right, go ahead. Give it to me.
Oh, jeez.
Start. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh my God. A woman cannot remarry the same man more than 3 times. Have you ever heard of that? I'm gonna have to ask Tyler about that.
Yeah, I have not heard about that. I've not heard that law. I had a client once that had remarried the same woman twice.
Right.
No, so the man had been married 9 times. When I asked him about his marriages, he was like, he kind of giggled, and I was like, yeah, what? And he said, well, I've been married 9 times. And I was like, okay. And he goes, I know that's bad. I said, no. I said, let's, and he said, well, 2 of them I've been married to twice. So, for example, let's say he married Mrs. Smith.
Right.
And then divorced her. And then married Mrs. Jones. And then divorced her. Then went back and married Mrs. Smith.
Right.
And then divorced her. And then went back and married Mrs. Jones. So 2 women he'd been married to and divorced twice.
Wow.
So
he had a hard time making his mind up.
I do know you can do it at least one time. You can divorce him and marry him.
Well, I've always heard of people getting a divorce and then remarrying the same person again.
But then you would. So
why would you do?
This is saying divorce, and then remarry him a 3rd time.
Yeah. Now it was specific to a woman being unable to remarry a man more than 3 times.
So a man can marry.
Right. And that's the other thing.
That's the other thing. It would have to be.
Well, you got to think, though, some of these laws would also have been probably put into effect when things were a bit different.
Okay, read it again. Read one more time.
A woman cannot remarry the same man more than 3 times. But could the man decide to remarry that same woman, though?
Right. Okay. So
a 4th time.
That's one thing. And the other thing is, it says remarry 3 times.
Right.
So you have your initial marriage.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have remarriage number 1, remarriage number 2.
Oh,
and remarriage number 3. So you can't. The question is can you get 3 marriages out of this law or 4?
Right. And then not able to remarry the 5th time.
I don't know.
Technically.
I don't know. So see,
I don't even know how you make it that far.
Well, we're overlooking the obvious here, and that is, what type of situation would you have to have? I guess what I am foreseeing, maybe the reasoning behind the law is, I have heard of people saying, look, I love you still, and we're in love just as much as we were like day one.
Right.
But for financial reasons, if like a person had, let's say 2 people marry, it's not their first marriage, and they have kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there are certain financial benefits for single mothers or single parents who, for like paying for college education and getting loans for education, getting grants for education, and certain things that are easier if you're a single parent as opposed to a married couple, okay? Because you look at combined income for that purpose.
Right.
And also for forgiveness on loans and deterrence on loans, like, extending the life of loans. I have heard of financial reasons for people to divorce, and then they remarry.
So they're not divorcing out of a situational circumstance where they're technically in their minds and hearts still married.
Yes, and they're
just legally.
And they're living in the same residence,
right,
and they're
legally
paying the same bills that they had before.
Okay.
But they are legally not married.
Oh, so this law could then be pertaining to you not being able to like screw over.
Continue to screw, like every year something comes up, you
right.
dump it at the end of the year and then remarry at the beginning of the year.
See, that makes sense to me. That would make sense.
Yeah, and again, I don't know, and I've never. It's never come up in my practice, obviously, because number 1, I don't do a lot of financial planning. Number 2, for clients, because I'm not a financial planner. Sometimes what we do is we help get them with financial. But number 2, I just don't do any domestic relations work. And I would bet Tyler's never run into somebody calling and saying, "Hey, I want to get married a 4th time," and But I bet the reasoning behind it is something about trying to skirt the system or something.
That makes sense. I get that. Because that's the other thing is like they do that so people can't, like you said, screw the system. But a sensible person is probably not going to marry the same person 4 or 5 times.
Right. Because what immediately comes to mind when we hear it is what kind of person or people would put themselves through that.
So people who really
confused. Funny would be if you got the same minister or officiant, know. Say, I got this one down my heart, guys. I can do it in 5 minutes.
Are you just reusing the same vows over and over again? Just amend them a little bit. I wonder.
That's pretty good, but that would be my guess. It has something to do with that. One question I have, and obviously, if we've only made it through 1, this is probably going to have a part 2.
This is gonna be a part 5.
Yeah, but the question I have: do you have any ages on these laws or sites on these laws?
On a couple or a few of them, I do, and then some I have the KRS.
Oh, okay, but this one you don't have the.
This one I don't. No.
All right. I would bet this was. Well, if it is for the reason that I said, it may not be that old of a law. Because, coming up with these reasons to skirt tax issues and financial gain and stuff like that, you wonder if that was something that would have been needed.
Well, what I'll do is I'll look further into that and see maybe if that's what it's pertaining to more. So the next time,
all right,
we can do a fact check.
Okay. So let's declare something right now. Let's declare that this is part 1 in obscure laws.
Yeah.
And that next week we will do part 2. And if we need it, we can carry it on to part 3. Okay. So you're going to do making notes about the research. I just threw you a pin there. There you go. And so the research on this one is going to be maybe the age of the law. And if you can give me a citation to it, I can maybe pull some annotation to it. Okay.
Well, this next one I do.
Okay.
So the next one is women are not allowed to purchase a new hat without the authorization of their husband. This went into effect in 1922, and it's KRS 252.130.
Okay, I tell you what, for those that have never come to our studios, it's a mobile studio. Our studio sometimes is at one end of the building, and other times it's in the law library.
Right.
And we are in the law library, and we do have a set of the Kentucky Revised Statutes just over my left shoulder.
That's
so
right.
I'm going to step away for a second. Okay. Now these have not.
And this is a first for me because you've never gotten a like one of these books.
Right, because I do. Okay, I was about ready to add that. So we do all of our research now by on Westlaw Edge. Okay, we discussed this with Chris, right? So, but we still have our original KRS hard volumes, and these were last updated with pocket parts. It looks like 2011. So we quit updating them after 2011 because everything. But anyhow,
well, luckily this law is from 1922.
What is the? What is the?
252.130.
252. Here's 250. Okay, It according to this, 252.130.
Yes.
It was repealed. That is no longer a law.
Oh, okay. Well, what do you know?
Yeah.
Does it say when it was repealed?
Doesn't. I don't have the repeal date. Yes. Section 252010 to Section 252.160, it was under bees and apiaries. Okay?
Okay.
Now, what is an apiary? Do you have your phone?
I do not.
I wonder what an apiary is. I don't know what an apiary is. Do you?
No.
Okay. But it says bees, like bumblebees or honeybees.
Right.
And apiaries. So I'm sorry, I don't know what apiaries means. I don't know if that's like a fancy word for a beekeeper.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we'll have to look that up. But it says repealed, see? And then it says compiler's notes. These sections were repealed by Acts 1948, Chapter 182, Section 12. So 1948, that was repealed.
But in 1922, you were not allowed to purchase a new hat.
Just so our listeners know, we took a break so that I could go get my phone to pull a little research on this, right? And an apiary is a place where bees are kept, a collection of beehives. Okay? So now what I want to do is I'm going to put in KRS. I'm going to go in under my Westlaw Edge.
Okay.
KRS, it was 252.
Yeah, .130.
KRS is against the law for a woman to buy a new hat without permission from her husband. So maybe it had to do with, and we'll have to, again, let's dig a little more on this one before the next time. But it may have had something to do with the beekeepers.
Well, the other thing, too, that is, one thing I've noticed is if you go back and you look at women's fashion at that time, a lot of their hats were very flowery. So I wonder if it had something to do with having flowers on the hats and bees. Maybe it's a stretch.
Back in the 40s and 50s, didn't women wear the beehive hair?
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know. But, okay, so let's keep this one for maybe some more research before the next time. Because certainly we've kind of poked a hole in the fact that it's a current law. We know it is not a current law. So one thing we know for sure is it's not a current law. It was repealed in 1948, and it has something. The reasoning for it obviously is born in this idea of beekeeping.
Right.
We do know that. Okay.
All right. Okay. Another one is it is illegal to fish with a bow and arrow.
Does it have a site for that?
It doesn't. It doesn't. Like I said, a lot of these do not. So I'll have to do a little bit more research, and then we can retouch on it.
Okay, so let's make this one our last one for the day.
Okay.
But let's talk about that law then is broken a lot. Because in the backwaters here, there are people all the time that have those bow fishing, like their bow is set up with a big reel on it, and they shoot, and you see this rope go out, and it spears the fish, and then they take it and they reel it in, and they catch these gigantic, like carp, grass carp.
So you're thinking it too probably got repealed at some point.
I don't know if it's been repealed. I don't know if it hasn't been repealed, it just gets broken all the time.
Right.
It would be very simple to enforce this one and catch people in this area because we have so many backwaters from the Ohio River.
Right. Well, it makes me think of like you're not. I mean, it is illegal to use dynamite, right?
To fish.
To fish, yeah.
Well, to use dynamite, period, without some type
I guess
of
that's
permit,
true.
right? But no, and again, there may have been it could still be a law. If we get a site, I would be able to tell you. But number two or B, I would think that there were certain types of fish they were worried about going extinct or something, and the only way to catch those fish were with bow and arrow instead of fishing traditional one. Because I know it's very difficult to catch a carp. Because to catch a carp, and I think those carps are a lot of the ones that are in the backwater. So maybe that had something to do with that. I don't know.
Well, I can use another one that's got the KRS.
Okay.
If you want to do one more.
One more.
Okay. I found this one to be really interesting, actually. As a woman, you cannot be in a bathing suit on the highway unless you are either escorted by at least 2 police officers armed with a club or either lighter than 90 pounds or more than 200 pounds.
436-140 was called Appearing on Highway in Bathing Garb. That was the title of that was.
Very specific.
Yes, but then compiler's notes. This section was repealed by the Acts of 1974, Chapter 406, Section 336, and the repealing of it became effective on January 1st, 1975. So now women can freely walk the highway in their bathing garb.
Right. Well, the 70s was like the time of love, right? So that's probably why they repealed it.
So now read it to me again, because I think you're having a little bit of emphasis on the club problem. Read it one more time.
Okay, so this is the way it was written. As a woman, you cannot be in a bathing suit on the highway unless you are either escorted by at least 2 police officers.
So you had to have 2 police officers escorting you, or
armed with a club.
Okay, so
there's a comma.
Okay, so if you're armed with a club,
right,
then you don't need the 2 police officers.
Right. Or you're lighter than 90 pounds or more than 200 pounds.
Now this is screwy. So the third option, if you don't have 2 police officers escorting you,
right, or
you don't have a billy club of some type with your person, you could only get away with this if you weighed less than 90 pounds or weighed more than 200 pounds. So women between 91 pounds and 199 pounds were not allowed to walk the roads in their garb, in their bathing garb.
So if you looked like a supermodel, you couldn't wear a bathing suit, but if you were over 200 pounds, you're good to go.
Yeah, no, I think it is. Here is the presumption I'm thinking. If you're under 90 pounds, you're a kid, and so nobody would hurt a kid.
Right.
And if you're over 200 pounds, you can defend yourself.
Right. You
don't
take
need
them
the 2 police officers or the club.
Right. Your arms are clubs at that point.
Or maybe they're thinking that is a distraction unless you're tiny and aren't attractive, or unless you're too big and not attractive.
Right.
I don't know why the weight limit's in there. Now that really makes there's no wonder that law got
And
repealed.
I actually read this on a few different websites, and the weight limit part was in every single one of them. It was written a little bit differently in terms of like 90 pounds and 200 pounds were the same, but the other pieces of it were written like a bit differently.
Okay,
so I know they weren't like copying and pasting it, but it was basically said the same thing, that if you were smaller than 90 pounds or more than 200 pounds, then the law did not pertain to you.
Yeah, and you know what's interesting is the next one was 436-150. This is okay. So these are called offense. This part of the Kentucky Revised Statutes was under a chapter called Offenses Against Morality.
Oh, wow. I bet that would be really interesting to read.
Well, guess what the next one was?
I cannot wait.
The next one was profane cursing and swearing.
I'd already be in jail.
436 150, and it's profane cursing and swearing. It was repealed in 1975, same time as the other one. 436 160, working on a Sunday. And work of necessity or charity athletic games in certain businesses and employers. Any person who works on Sunday at his own or at any other occupation or employs another person in labor or other business, whether for profit or amusement, unless his work or employment of others is in the course of ordinary household duties, work of necessity or charity work required in the maintenance operation of a public service, shall be fined not less than $2 nor more than $50 for doing said work.
So a police officer could drive by a business, and if they saw someone working,
fine them.
They could go in and cite them.
Right, unless it meets one of those requirements. And that one's, as of now, these books were, like I said, these books are up until 2011, so that may have changed, and the amounts may have changed and all that. But yeah,
and this was prior to 75, of course.
Right, but this book was last updated, so it would not be in this book.
What does it say about the cursing specifically? Like what
it
was?
Has no. It just says that it was repealed.
Okay,
but that was 436 150.
I would make the assumption that they're saying if you're publicly cursing, or saying profane things in a public space, then you probably could.
Just since we're on this chapter. Here are the other things that are in the chapter of offenses against morality.
Okay.
All right. Seduction of a female under 21, repealed.
Of course.
Abortion, repealed. Waiting period required between consent to and performance of abortion, repealed. Ready for this?
Yeah.
Concealing the birth of a bastard child.
Wow.
Yes. Repealed in 1974. Pandering, repealed. Sodomy, repealed.
Thank God.
Incest. Incest was repealed. Adultery.
What? Hold the phone for a second. Incest?
Yeah, at 436060, all it said was incest, and it says it was, okay, it says for the present law, see 530020, and that would be in a different book. So in other words, they rewrote it. Yeah, they wrote it somewhere else. Fornication and adultery, it was repealed, and it doesn't say for current law. So adultery is, I guess, no longer illegal.
Right.
Prostitution, lewdness, bigamy, manufacturing and distribution of advertising articles for immoral use. Distribution of obscene literature. 436.110, publications featuring crime. Publications featuring pictures of people influenced by stimulants.
So if you've taken Excedrin migraine and you are feeling real good because of that caffeine, you cannot be portrayed in a magazine.
And then comes our infamous 436.140, appearing on the highway in bathing garb.
People now that complain that they don't feel like they live in a truly free country need to read these books.
Right.
Because it's like, if you think it's bad now, imagine living before 1975. You can't walk down the highway. You can't sodomize.
No.
I mean, come on.
Listen to this one. This is 436.170. Exhibiting or using stud horse, jack, or a bull near a place of worship, residence, or school.
What?
Yes, it was repealed in 1975, but it says for the current law to see 525.060 and 525.150. Dog fights and chicken fights, gambling in gender, common gambling, operating a gambling machine. These have all been rewritten into others, but this was all a part of the original offenses against morality.
I'm assuming these are laws that are compiled over time. right? Not
right. These weren't all done at one time.
Yeah, they didn't all just sit in a room.
This is a part of the legislative process that's been in place since the founding fathers wrote the federal Constitution, U.S. Constitution,
right,
that gave the states the right to write their own constitutions, and then out of that we have a state lawmaking process, and these laws that are in these books are the results of lawmakers that we vote on going to Frankfurt and a bill going through the entire procedure and becoming law.
I would love to be a fly on the wall for some of those because, someone had to sit down and go, all right, guys, we got to talk about this use of a bull
near a school.
We need to talk about it. And then at least more than one other person was like, you know what? He's right.
That's an issue.
We need to talk about this.
That is an issue.
And then it gets put into effect.
Right.
And then 20 years later, somebody sits down and goes,
we need to take
this is really stupid.
Yeah. Because, we have farms near schools all the time.
Right.
I mean, okay, so I didn't mean to hijack our discussion here today.
I thought this actually went even better than what I had planned because this is just fascinating.
Yes. So we're at our limit for where we like to keep the podcast.
Yes, we are.
Yeah, and so
your biological clock is like on point with this podcast.
Well, I started to get the feel, the itch. Before we wrap it up, number one, this episode needs to get to Hawaii and Alaska. Okay, and second is we have peeled off just a small layer of the onion on obscure laws. You've got a little more research to do. So next show starts with you answering some of the questions about the first two that we had, and then we'll jump into some more.
Right.
Okay.
We should have a lawmaker. We should try to get a lawmaker for one of these episodes.
Oh yeah, that would be great. A legislator.
Right. And even if we get them on the phone and be like, I understand why people say, it probably should be against the law for incest, but what's the thinking behind repealing it?
Well, it was moved to a different, that one was the one that was moved to a different.
So, so repealing doesn't necessarily mean that they did away with it.
They just put it in a different statute, a different chapter. But if I said it was repealed and it wasn't rewritten, then it was like, the one is like, of all those that we just read, the Jack Bull or the whatever, that one's got me. But the woman in her beach garb between certain weights is not allowed unless she has two police officers or she's carrying a billy club. I don't get that law at all. I just don't. I do not. I don't see the justification of how they made certain things exclusions to it.
Well, someone obviously argumented a point.
Did that law come about because of one situation? I mean, were there a bunch of women between 91 pounds and 199 pounds walking the roads in their lewd, crude bathing suits without police officers helping them and without billy clubs?
Well, this would have been before the 70s.
I don't know.
But, I mean,
I'm baffled.
In the 50s, 60s, and in the 70s, there were a lot of protests and things. So I wonder if it has something to do with protests and a whole, and
the bra burning thing? This bathing garb, man.
Right. Well, I mean, a bathing suit for a woman is pretty much a bra and panties.
But still, we say we can have two police officers, it's fine. Or if you have your own club with you, it's fine. Or if you're in this weight range, you can do it. If you're up 0 to 90, so we could have a 16-year-old walking the road in her bathing garb.
I'll find out before next one.
Okay, all right.
We'll get it.
We got a lot. We have got a lot to get
locked
to.
Down.
All right. Well, we certainly want to keep this educational and interesting, and I think we are right on point.
Oh yeah, today was. Yeah.
Okay.
I dug this one.
Yeah, this is good. Good stuff. But we need to wrap it up. So everybody in Hawaii and Alaska, this has been more Law Lite, brought to you, as always, by Foreman Watson Holtry. FWHlegal.com is where you can find out a whole lot more information about the firm. And also, you can always check us out on all platforms of social media. Until next time.
This case should never have come to trial.
I don't think it's fair to call my clients frauds. Because one time I turned into a dog and they helped me. Thank you.
Your Honor, we would like to withdraw our plea of not guilty and enter a plea of guilty.
This trial is a travesty. It's a travesty of a mockery, of a sham, of a mockery, of a travesty, of two mockeries of a sham.
If we are to have faith in justice, We need only to believe in ourselves.
And the truth shall set you free!
How do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Oh, guilty, but with a real good excuse.
I think the truth will come forth.
You can't handle the truth!